Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have determined that let me just move this over a bit. We have determined that our pad builder craft here is a bit of a Frankenstein, to be sure, but we have determined that it is weak. This is not effectively fast enough to lift what we are looking for here. So I did a little bit of looking off camera at the engine choices that we have at this exact moment. And the only two engines that are more powerful than the mainsails that we've got lifting this right now are the twin bore here and the thoroughbred. Now, the thoroughbred is solid fuel. And I'm not if we have to, we'll strap on some SRBs. I would prefer not to, given the fact that we've already got 5 cores on this thing. I'll try to pass on any more. Now, let's see here. The vacuum thrust on this is 2,000 kilonewtons, compared to the vacuum thrust on the mainsail of 1,500 kilonewtons. Okay, and then the at sea level is also about 500 more. Okay, good to know. So this does come with its own fuel. One thing we could do is we could simply drop the mainsails off of here and just slap these guys on. Now, that would actually not be that tall of a rocket, but you can see here that we would have to change where our tail fins are. That's not shocking. And we would, of course, have another twin bore right there. Now, at this point, our tail fins are objectively making things worse for us. We'll come back to that in a moment, though. What's our thrust to weight here, actually? We need to change this into here. 1.49. That's actually slightly less thrust to weight than what we had before, but it is a 99-second burn time compared to, if I undo that, this is an 84-second burn time. So it is a longer burn time at a slightly lower thrust to weight. Okay. And of course, we have fuel flow going in over here. We could drop this fuel. We could also theoretically drop fuel out of these side tanks here and fill that up later. Like, do we actually need the fuel up here to land? Probably not. But we also have to consider this is our maneuvering stage as well. So we might need to... I was going to say stop by the fuel station and refuel, but we might have to do some sort of refueling mission for this. It's a possibility. Now, of course, we're going to have to change where these are located, and we're going to move them down to be about here. And that does bring us up to 1.66 thrust to weight, having this empty. I really do want these to be full, ideally. We could do another external stage of SRBs. I'm not going to say it's going to be great looking, but when was this rocket ever great looking? So we could do something along the lines of this. Now, I'm not necessarily saying this is what we should do. This is what we can do. It's Kerbal, so it kind of works. We actually need a larger rocket nose cone than that. This one? Yes, this one. Okay. So, I mean, we would have to strut it in here, for sure. Like, I would strut these together like this, and then I would also strut it in like that. And that should be enough rigidity. So, I mean, look at the cost of this thing. I mean, it's so ugly. It's so ugly. But all of this would burn simultaneously, which would mean that we would have a thrust to weight of 1.71. I'm not claiming that this is the most aesthetic rocket I have ever made. It is objectively not that. But this is a really, really heavy lift thing. I'm just wondering, can you fit cargo storage units into cargo storage units for later purposes? Like for taking this apart? Cannot be placed in a storage container, but can be manipulated in EVA construction. Okay. That would be weird if you could put a storage container into a storage container, I suppose. Oh, this is a monstrosity, and I hate it. I absolutely despise everything about it right now. Like, objectively. It's an 879-second burn on this engine. That's probably sufficient, but the thrust to weight on that is 0.05. We have basically no thrust to weight up here. So that's going to be some long burns. There's no doubt about that. And that's why our delta V is so low up there. But over min-miss, it looks like our stage 1 is going to have a thrust to weight of 3.78, which is enough, in theory. We just got to get this thing to min-miss. That's going to be the challenging part here. We could run a quick aerodynamic test here, because we've definitely made a few changes. I'm going to simulate this through the lower part of the atmosphere. Again, because this is a simulation, this is going to be reverted. I am just checking for major issues at this point. We're getting very close to launching this thing to min-miss, but... oh, it's a monstrosity. It is so disgusting. And it's even off-center on the pad. I love it. I love it. Okay. Shall we see how horribly this goes? I'm kind of dreading it. I've built a monster. Reasonable speed off the pad. That's not too bad. It's a little loud, but I mean, it's a rocket. What do you expect? Aerodynamic test. Pretty good. The aerodynamics are reasonable. Okay. We're flipping here. But if I don't do those extreme moves, then it's okay. Okay, let's revert that, and I'm going to do one final test here. And that test is after the first stage side boosters, not the SRBs, but after these side boosters are removed, A, how does that detach go now that this is substantially longer? And B, that actually is a question. How does this detach go? And B, how exactly fast are we going under more realistic launch circumstances? So let's try this one last time here. I did get the aerodynamic information that we needed from the last attempt. Of course, it wasn't a real attempt, it was simulated the whole time. So let's try with a little bit more realistic of a launch profile here. And we're bringing it right on over. Coming off on the heading a little bit, that's expected. With a payload like this, for sure. Oh, that's a tumble. Okay. So we're a little light on the aerodynamics. That does not give me the information that I wanted, so instead we're going to not do any sort of turn here and just see how it goes straight up, and we'll address the aerodynamics in just a moment. We've clearly got a little bit of a lack of control, and that's a little surprising considering that these SRBs also gimbal. But we're just going to take this almost entirely straight up. Oh man, this thing's a monster. I hate it so much. And we're just going to move this guy over a little bit horizontal here. We're just going to sit basically here. Okay. Now the question is, what does our speed end up looking like? And so far it's looking pretty good. I mean, we've got lots of burn left in our SRBs, and then our liquid fuel engines burn a little while longer. This is looking reasonable as far as first stage thrust goes, but I am definitely slightly concerned that I haven't checked this staging. Yes, this is correct. Okay. We're going to stay back here where it's nice and quiet. And I just want to head to that prograde marker at this point. We can see here our apoapsis is great. I staged that a little early, but it's all good. Definitely slightly early there, but overall, I mean, we're entering a bit of a tumble right now. This isn't shocking to me, to be completely clear. We do not have very much horizontal speed, and we knew that would be the case. Of course, this isn't a real launch, but this does tell me that we got basically what we needed. This would definitely easily get us into orbit. Yeah, this'll work. And I don't even think that we need to address the aerodynamic situation. We can just be a little bit cautious with it. So we can call this a real flight at this point. I'm ready to be done with this craft. Let's get it up there. Okay, let's do this. We know there's an aerodynamic issue. We can largely ignore it. Off we go. I'm actually going to set this at like slightly under 100% thrust because our apoapsis was very high once we detached our SRBs, which I even detached slightly early. So I'm going to actually do like 2/3 thrust here. Definitely slow off the pad. There's no doubt about that. What is our current thrust to weight? 1.47. Reasonable. I prefer something slightly higher. Maybe if I did this launch again, which this is a real launch at this point, I may have made it to be a little bit faster off the pad and then throttled down around now. But overall, I think this is reasonably okay. I'm going to go into orbital mode here. And we're just going to head on over to here. We're relying very heavily on our gimbaling right now for our attitude control, which is the reason why we have to be a little bit cautious with it. Got about 25 seconds left in the SRBs. Oh, I didn't even test this, did I? Well, we'll be in vacuum, so it shouldn't actually be an issue. Ooh, definitely drifting off that heading. We are needing to remain where we are. Ooh, this is not great. This is not great at all. Okay. SRB's gone. We're up to full. This is definitely loud, this rocket engine. That's okay. Hit that prograde marker now that the atmosphere is thinning out. Okay. Hold here. Fantastic. We're aiming for 85 kilometers. Shut it off. Okay. We're going to need a lot of horizontal speed. We knew this was going to be the case. We should head for that maneuver node immediately. And this is probably fine as far as the burn goes. Actually, not quite. Going to need to adjust the timing of this a little bit like that. That'll do. Okay. So we're heading over towards that node, and as soon as we hit space, we will know when we need to burn this. This is a lot of speed that we need to burn, for sure. Like, a whole lot of speed. But we can look at our DV here and see that we've got plenty. So that should be fine, in theory. Assuming this is fuel flowing properly, which I'm a little concerned about that, but, I mean, we could allow crossfeed through these. That'll be fine. Okay, so we now know that this is going to be how much burn? 2 minutes and 18 seconds, which actually means we need to be burning now. Now. So off we go horizontally. And we're going to ditch our side stages in just a moment here. In vacuum, there should be no issue with it. This is going to be loud. I apologize. Beautiful. Okay, now it's much more manageable in terms of its volume. This is definitely the heaviest payload we've lifted yet, bar none. We're still approaching the apoapsis here. We've still got 1 kilometer per second to put into this. We need a lot of thrust to weight in this. There's no doubt about that. This is, of course, all pulling from all of these tanks. Our thrust to weight is approaching 1.0, so that's good. And we're going to just have enough to squeak in here, but this thrust to weight is going to be real bad. We've got very, very long burn times. That's the good news. I'm wondering still why this is giving us a different thrust to weight. Oh, because we would detach this and it would then burn from this tank. Right, that's what it's assuming. Yeah, that's not actually what we're going to do. In theory, we will never detach this unless I make a mistake. So we've got about 600 more meters per second here until we enter orbit. Now, this is not going to be exactly what we're looking for in terms of our orbit here, because actually at this point I need to just burn prograde. Like this. No, actually, I'm wrong. We do want to be burning on the maneuver node, because that moves us up a little towards the radial. That's fine. 300 more meters per second to burn here, and we've got about that left in this tank. So in theory, that puts us into orbit. In theory. Yeah, we're basically in orbit right now. Not quite there, but we're going to be there very, very shortly. And I'm just checking this number up here. Orbital mode, but we're not in orbit yet. There, good enough. We will save the 8 meters per second that we've got here. Okay, I'm going to now remember to extend the photovoltaic panels, which I did forget to set up an action group for. I actually intended to do that, but I got distracted. Sorry. So next we are going to, of course, set Minmus as our target. And we're going to, at the ascending node, looks like, we are going to go for some sweet, sweet radial burn. Something like this or so. Yeah, that should do the trick. We'll line up for that maneuver and physics warp as we do so. This is going to be a very slow turn. Excellent. And then we will burn the last 8 meters per second that we've got here. And this is going to be apparently a 2-minute, 25-second burn. So we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 1 minute and 12.5 seconds, which is fine. And that time warp is now complete, and we will move up to 1 minute, 12.5 seconds. And we'll burn it now. And off we go. Okay, I was a little delayed there on that second activation, but it's all good. So at this point, I would like to, well, I wish there was a way to lock these to make it so that you didn't accidentally stage them, but it's okay. So we will go ahead and burn this, and that is fine. We can see here it's not burning anything from the center tank, but only the outer tanks. And technically, we didn't need that. We could have just enabled crossfeed here, but that's fine. So this burn will be a little bit lengthy, and I am going to go ahead and physics warp this burn, just to make it go a little bit faster, because our thrust to weight, not great. Not great at all. 100 more meters per second to burn here. Excellent. And I'm going to stop the physics warp now, because we are almost there in terms of our inclination. 15 more meters per second. Good enough. Good enough. Okay, where's Minmus right now? Right now, Minmus is there. Okay, so somewhere around our apoapsis is where we want to push out here. It's going to be a big ol' burn for sure. Very lengthy. Okay, so probably move it back a little bit like that. A little bit more over this way, I think. No, we're getting further away. We want it to be more like here? Yeah, we're getting close here. More like that. Okay. That brings us in relatively low over Minmus, and I'm okay with that. Let's go ahead and bring that down to somewhere around 50 kilometers is pretty good. I actually want it to be closer to 20 here. There. That'll be nice. I don't care about this inclination. That is completely okay. We will go ahead and physics warp as we turn over to this maneuver node. There we go. How are we doing on power? Our power is doing okay. We're definitely using a lot of power, but we should be fine on that front very shortly. We'll go ahead and warp to that maneuver. This is going to be a 6-minute and 44-second burn. We're definitely going to physics warp the burn. There's no doubt about that one. And yeah, we can see here that our electric charge is doing fine. Absolutely fine. So we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 3 minutes and 22 seconds. So we will go ahead and warp towards that marker, which will be right about now. So off we go, and we're going to physics warp this burn. Make that go just a little bit faster. It would be a very lengthy burn otherwise. Of course, not as lengthy as some burns are probably going to end up being, but still pretty lengthy, for sure. And of course, we're going to have to take a look at what our overall location is going to end up being. It's probably going to be a little off because of the length of this burn, but that is expected, and we can always tweak that. It's not like we're short on delta V here. Not short on delta V at all. I mean, this number is not accurate. You should not pay attention to this number. It's going to be less than that because of thrust to weight issues. But regardless, we're going to bring this down another 500 meters per second. That will get us our encounter with Minmus. And once we're in Minmus gravity, things will go so much more smoothly because we'll actually have some thrust to weight here over Minmus, which we do not have here. According to KER, it was going to be 3.79 fully fueled, and we won't be fully fueled. So that'll be, in theory, absolutely fine. We're just locked to this maneuver node right now, and pushing out our apoapsis. We've got another 200 meters per second to burn here. And that is fine. About another 120. And we're going to stop the physics warp pretty soon. Sometime around now. Okay. 20 more meters per second on the burn. And we will just position over here. Okay, we'll just bring this in nice and cautiously. 13 kilometers. You know what? I'll take it. That'll do. Our inclination is definitely different, but that's fine. That's fine. We can go ahead and do a retrograde burn over here, and we're going to need to bring that in to circularize this and make that be something along the lines of that. And then we can always burn to come down here if necessary. So let's go ahead and line up for that maneuver. We turn much more quickly now, so that's great. And we will begin our journey out to Minmus. Wait a second. Why is Jebediah here? I brought the wrong Kerbal. Okay, how did I just now notice that? Jebediah is not helpful. We need an engineer. I feel certain that I put Bob in this thing. Nevertheless, we're going to have to send Bob out separately. Do we have a contract for that? Not currently. We maybe can get one. Let's hop back to the Space Center while we're traveling here. We have 7 days until we get to our destination. So let's go hop back to the Space Center and see if maybe there's a contract for a crew transfer over Minmus. If so, then we'll just send Bob up on a different flight. It's not helpful in terms of our cash unless there's a contract, of course. This was a very expensive launch, and I definitely should have checked for that. A new surface outpost on Minmus. it's a little late for this. We can do a flag on Minmus. That's definitely something we can do. Surface deployed seismic sensor science on the moon. This is ground contact, atmosphere, and splash down on Eve. That's something that we actually will be doing. That's a lot of cash. I'm very happy about that then. Okay, everything else here, that's fine. So we are going to have to send up Bob on a separate mission. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we'll send up Bob. I can't believe I made that mistake. Oh, how did I not notice it was Jeb? I feel so dumb. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings. And I'll see you all next time when I think we'll just create a new craft to send Bob up.